Hi guys, it's me, HD, and welcome to a very special episode of This Week in Formula 1. I haven't actually done an episode of This Week in F1 since, I think, the 10th of February, so it's been basically a month since I've done one of this type of series. Now, the reason today's episode of F1 of This Week in F1 is so special is because normally in this series, if you want to check out previous episodes, and make sure to go to the end of this video if you're watching this after it's gone up as a stream. Make sure to go to the end and then click on the playlist that will have on the screen. But what I normally do is talk about the news, 2 or 3 different topics, and talk about the news this week in Formula 1. But because we're only a week away from the start of the season, and there's no massive news this week. The only real news we've had is that Paddy Lowe is leaving Williams with only a week to go until the first Grand Prix. I thought, why not do a special episode where we only focus on Williams and really detail how it's gone wrong, what the problems are, and how they can be sorted. So that is exactly what we are going to be doing today. And yeah, one by one, we'll go through those, how they, went from the front of the grid almost to the midfield, and then, of course, to the back of the grid. I'll then look at the people or the decisions that have made them go from the front to the back. And also, I will suggest some people who I think should come to Williams to help out this team, who I think would do a much better job than certain other people who have held or are currently holding certain positions. I think you might know who I mean by that once we get later on into this stream. But hopefully you guys who are watching are doing well, no matter where you are, no matter where you are in the world right now. And also, before anyone asks, yes, I will be setting up the HD F1 F1 Fantasy League for 2019 after this stream finishes, and I'll post it in Discord within the next 3 hours. So that's what I will be doing in regards to that. But I think let's now get into how Williams at the start of the V6 turbo era went from the front of the grid and progressively went to the back. Let's now get into that. So starting off in 2014, after a miserable 2013 for Williams, 2013 was basically up at that point their worst season in their history. 2014 was at that time probably the best season they had since 2003. It was that good for the team. They were finally looking good again. They looked as though they might be able to win races based on actual proper pace, and they also had a pole position in 2014, and they were looking very, very good. And really, if you look at that season, once they had that not only pole position at the Austrian Grand Prix but also front row, after that point they were basically the second best team on the grid. The reason they didn't finish second in the constructors was because Red Bull were a bit more consistent of a team compared to Williams. But Williams had a very good 2014, and again, it was probably their best season since 2003. And it looked as though this team was finally back, more or less, in a position where it deserved to be. And it was looking good for this team going forward. But then in 2015... even though they finished in the same position in the constructors, you were starting to see this team falling off compared to where they were in 2014, because, as I'll show in a moment, in 2014 they had a lot more podiums than they did in 2015. And if you look at how 2015 went, so at the start of the season, first off, they fell behind Ferrari in terms of pace, which was a bit disappointing considering they were miles faster than Ferrari in 2014. And then after having a decent mid part of the season around Austria and Silverstone, where they were very, very quick, and they were leading the British Grand Prix with a 1-2, Massa ahead of Bottas. By the end of 2015, they looked as though they were now falling behind Red Bull. So you could really see in 2015 even that this team progressively was starting to slip off compared to where they were. Despite that though, they did finish P3 in the Constructors. And here are the stats from both 2014 and 2015 for this team. So in 2014, they had no race wins, but they did have a pole position, 9 podiums, and they finished 3rd in the Constructors. In 2015, again, no race wins. They didn't have a pole position. They only had 4 podiums, but again, finished P3 in the Constructors. So in terms of, say, Constructors' position, they were still looking all right, but again, you could see the downfall starting because, again, Ferrari had overtook them. Red Bull, even though Red Bull dropped behind them for most of 2015, by the end of that season, Red Bull had basically caught them. And then into 2016, Red Bull were firmly ahead, even at tracks where you'd expect Williams to destroy Red Bull in terms of, at, say, power circuits like the Italian Grand Prix. So Red Bull had really caught and passed Williams very soon into 2016. And 2016 was very disappointing for Williams because after 2015, again, you could see them dropping off. You would have hoped that they could make a bit more progress towards the top. Not massive, but just, I don't know, a quarter of a second, something like that. Or at least some progress back towards the top of the field. But they fell back even more. Again, they fell even further behind Red Bull, to the point where Red Bull at some races were even lapping them. And Force India finished ahead of them in the Constructors in 2016. And it was especially at the end of that season, they were very disappointing, Williams. They were only really good in 2016 for the first, I think, 7 or 8 races. And then after, I think it was Austria or some race like that, they were basically a midfield team. And that continued, unfortunately for them, into 2017. Where, at the start of that season, they were actually looking quite good. They weren't looking too bad. They looked a bit better compared to where they were at the end of 2016. But then again, during the season, especially at the end of that season, Williams were not really good enough to score any points at certain races. They only really scored points because of Felipe Massa's experience and great driving, or because the track suited their car. They weren't really consistently scoring points based on having a really good car. It was more so a bit of luck and also some great driving at times from the drivers. And by the end of 2017, I remember predicting that Williams' downfall would continue because it'd been continuing since the end of 2014. And as you can see here, again, in 2016, no race wins and no pole positions, but 1 podium. That was at Canada in 2016. And instead of finishing 3rd in the Constructors like they did in 2014 and 2015, they finished 5th in 2016 and had pretty much a similar season in 2017. No race wins, no pole positions, 1 podium. That was Lance Stroll, Baku in 2017. And again, 5th in the Constructors. So, they weren't really making any progress. They were just slowly but surely falling back towards the back of the grid. And then in 2018, they had their worst season in their history. They only had 2 points finishes and were so far off the pace at times. And it was such an embarrassing season for this team. It has to be their worst. Not only is it, I think, factually their worst in terms of position and scoring points, but it was just the way their season went. It really was their worst season ever and it was so bad. At this point, even though I thought Williams for 2019 were going to be worse, I didn't think they would be much worse, as we'll get onto in a moment. But yeah, 2018 was such an embarrassment. Such an embarrassment. And here you can see no wins, no pole positions, no podiums, and last in the Constructors. Now, some people who are watching might say, well, you can't, throw out these race wins and pole positions and podium stats because they're a midfield team. I disagree. These are the standards that Williams should be trying to meet, not points finishes and top 10 finishes. It should be how many race wins, pole positions, and podiums are we getting, not, again, points finishes and stuff like that. They need to set their targets higher, and that's why I have listed those stats instead of, again, points finishes and stuff like that would normally be a good stat for a midfield team. This team should not be competing at the midfield level. They should be up in the top 3 or even 4 of the Constructors. They really should. They shouldn't be any lower than 4th, in my opinion. They really should not. And for 2019, even though the first race is only a week away, I can pretty much predict what is going to happen now. They're not going to have any race wins or pole positions or podiums, of course, and they are going to finish dead last in the Constructors. There is no chance they will finish any higher than 10th. No way they're going to finish 10th. Not finish 10th. I don't even see how they can score points. I don't see it. Unless we get a crazy race like we had in Monaco in 1996, where only 4 cars finish, and they are one of the cars that finish. That's the only way I see them actually scoring points. I don't see them, based on pace or even driver performance, scoring points, because this car is so horrifically bad. I don't see how they possibly can. And after I've just detailed their downfall, let's now compare it. So in 2014, they were able to compete for the top 3 and 4 every Grand Prix. They were able to go for podiums at basically every race bar, say Monaco and Hungary and tracks like that. And were comfortably able to finish in the top 3 of the Constructors. Now in 2019, their car is so far off the back of the midfield that it's basically a 2012 HRT. Their technical director has left them 1 week before the season starts. And now, embarrassingly, they now have questions over the legality of their car. How embarrassing is that? And I said this yesterday and I ranted a bit, and I want to continue that rant, to be honest, because if you're going to have something illegal on your car, at least improve a lot compared to where you would normally be. That's the point of, I guess, cheating. If you're going to cheat, really improve compared to where you should be. Don't be even worse compared to where, say, you were the previous season, or, stuff like that. How can you have illegal parts on your car and be worse than you were last season? How is that even possible? Surely it'd be harder to do that than actually put illegal parts on the car and go faster. How is that possible? How is that possible? How can you do that? I've never heard of this before. Sorry, I just knocked my mic there. But I've never heard of this before, where a back marker team is at the back and has illegal parts on their car. I've never heard of this before. I've heard of cars that won't be allowed to race because they're not quick enough, but that's because of the pace of the car. That's not because of certain parts on the car which may not meet the FIA regulations for Formula 1. To be at the back and to have illegal parts on your car is unbelievable. How can you do that? Again, it would be harder to do that than actually have illegal parts on your car and go quicker. I can't believe that they've actually done this. It's wow. It takes a lot of skill to be that bad. And I think, honestly, for this team, it's harder for them to be this bad compared to being, say, like McLaren in the lower half of the midfield battle. I cannot believe they're this bad. How the mighty have sunk. But now, let's move on to the people that have caused this to happen. So first off, Claire Williams. Now, Claire Williams took charge of the team in 2013. Now, one thing I will praise her for is she did oversee Williams get that Mercedes power unit deal for 2014 and beyond. That was a good decision, of course, because they would never have had a pole position at Austria, or even probably the podiums that they did have. I don't think they would have. I think they gained massively in 2014 and 2015 from having the power unit they did have. If they had a Renault, I think Williams would have been at best a midfield team. And they probably would have been at the back for the entire V6 turbo era. And this would be expected for them to be at the back. But because they had that Mercedes power unit, they were fighting up in third and fourth place. So that was a good decision. But she has overseen this team get progressively worse season by season, to the point where they are now so comfortably at the back that, and Nib said this in the podcast yesterday. If you haven't checked it out, by the way, it's in the description down below. Even he said it. There might be races where they'll struggle to make the 107% rule. That is, you can't condone that. You cannot condone someone who leads the team from, again, third and fourth place to 19th and 20th, and even possibly to the point where they might not even be allowed to race because of how bad the car is. You cannot condone that, and there is no way she can be allowed to continue. She has ran this team literally into the ground. She has to go. And I'm now going to list why, because the other people that are responsible for Williams being as bad as they have been, the decisions for them to be at this team any longer than they should be, or being at the team at all, always comes back to Claire Williams. She is the root of the problem. Everything comes back to her, so she absolutely has to go. She's the number one person that has to go. Now, when it comes to Paddy Lowe, thankfully, he has left the team, because at the end of the day, in 2018, the car he designed was a dog of a car, and the 2019 car made the 2018 car look like a championship winning car. So he had to go. He designed two technically horrible racing cars. He had to leave that team. But I will stress this, he decided to leave, not Claire Williams. She didn't fire him. He decided to leave. That's how bad she is at running a team, when she can't see that this guy has designed two horrible cars. And I can tell you this now, if I was running Williams, he would have been fired by me before he could walk. Or, as the saying goes, I would have pushed him before he could jump. Because, again, he designed two absolutely terrible racing cars. But also, another big part of it, in my opinion, comes down to driver decisions. Now, between 2014 and 2016, Williams had Valtteri Bottas and Felipe Massa, and in my opinion, that was a good driver lineup. They could have, at times, done a bit better at certain races to maybe get a race win, or maybe get onto the podium and stuff like that. But I think, as a team, they were a good driver lineup, considering the quality of car they did have. You have to remember, Valtteri Bottas and Felipe Massa at their, well, maybe not at their best with Massa, but normally these two at an absolute top team would be the number 2 driver. So you're not exactly dealing with absolute top drivers here. You're dealing with drivers who are very good. But again, not top drivers like a Fernando Alonso or a Lewis Hamilton or a Sebastian Vettel. These drivers, again, are number 2s at top teams, like Valtteri Bottas is right now, and as Felipe Massa was in his first year at Ferrari, and also when he was teammates with Fernando Alonso. So they weren't great drivers, but they were very good, and I think did well enough with the car they had. But the big mistake was when Valtteri Bottas decided to leave Williams, and I know they announced Lance Stroll with Bottas for 2017 at that team before Rosberg decided to shockingly retire. Lance Stroll was not the right replacement for either Massa or Bottas. If you're going to replace one of those drivers, you've got to replace them with someone who is adequate enough to replace them and also get the kind of results that they were getting, if not better. So, for me, replacing Bottas or Massa, if Rosberg, say, did not retire, replacing those drivers with Stroll was not the right decision. It was not, because Stroll was never going to do as well as Massa or Bottas. If you put Esteban Ocon in that car, I think Ocon would have done just as well, if not better, than those 2 drivers. And you could argue the same with Pascal Wehrlein. But Lance Stroll was never going to do as well as those 2 drivers because they were very good. So replacing Bottas with Stroll was the wrong decision, even though when they put him in the team, he wasn't replacing Bottas, he was partnering him. Still, replacing any of those drivers with him was not the right decision. It should have been Massa and Ocon or Massa and Wehrlein. It should not have been Massa and Stroll. And after Felipe Massa retired at the end of 2017, they had another important decision to make. Who was going to replace Felipe Massa and the results that, he got out of that car. And even though I actually like him after the season he put in 2018, and he wasn't as bad as I thought he was going to be, Sergei Sorokin was not the answer to Felipe Massa. The answer to Felipe Massa would have been a Kvyat, a Pascal Wehrlein, a driver like that. Not Sergei Sorokin. Sergei did pretty well considering the car he had and considering how talented he is. But he was never going to do better than Felipe Massa in that type of car. He was never going to do better, and the decision to replace Massa with Sorokin was the wrong decision. It should have been a new, up-and-coming young driver who could be as good, if not better, than Felipe Massa. Say like a Pascal Wehrlein, or even again a Danny Kvyat, or another driver who could be as good, if not better. That's what you have to do when you replace a driver. You have to find someone who can be, unless they are a Lewis Hamilton or a Michael Schumacher. If it's a driver that is like a Felipe Massa or a Valtteri Bottas, you have to find someone who is either equally as good in terms of their potential or potentially better to replace them. Because if you replace them with someone who is never going to be as good or better, you're not going to get better results. That's not how it works unless you develop a car that is massively better than the car the previous season. And Williams were never going to do that. So replacing Massa with Sorokin was the wrong decision. Now, I think for 2019, Williams have made the right decision when it comes to their driver lineup, putting George Russell, who's the F2 champion, alongside Robert Kubica, who I think is kind of yet to be proven in terms of can he still race and be as good as he once was. But when it comes to those driver decisions of Lance Stroll and Sergei Sorokin, which in my opinion were not good decisions at all, those come back to Claire Williams. That's her decision and she got it massively wrong. I know people will say, oh, well, Stroll got a podium. Yes, he did. Even though I think he was lucky to get it, yes, he did. But you can't just take one result as that is, you know, that's how good the driver is. It was one result. Lance Stroll, I don't think is a good enough driver to finish on the podium in terms of pure pace, unless his car is miles better than everyone else. So, yeah, I think the driver decisions have been really bad because you had a good driver lineup in Bottas and Massa. They had a great working relationship. They were two very skilled and good guys, and then you replaced them with two drivers who are inexperienced and two drivers that I'm afraid are never going to be as good as Bottas or Massa. And once you do that, then you are going to go even further down the field. I'm afraid you are going to. Now, again, she has made a better decision with the driver lineup for 2019. But now the car is so bad because Paddy Lowe designed two horrible cars and because she runs the team so horribly. Now this quite good driver lineup has effectively no hope for 2019. They just have to go out there with nothing to lose and drive the absolute pants off the car and hope that something comes of it. And I don't think anything will come of it. So this team, for me, is absolutely done. They are done. They will be like Jordan. They will give it a couple years. They will be gone. And I don't say that in a happy way. I want Williams to be on the grid, but not in their current form under the current management of that team. They should have never let it get to this point. They should have never let it get to this point. And I have to say, for me, Claire Williams absolutely has to go. She is the root of these issues. If they get rid of her and replace her with someone who is a lot better in that type of role, you will start to see this team make progress even though they don't have that much money. They will start to make progress, but the problem is the Williams family is too proud to get rid of her and put someone else who's not a Williams in charge of that team. They're too proud, and I'm afraid they're going to have to drop the pride and try and save the team, because if they keep with this pride in having a Williams run the team, there won't be a Williams F1 team to speak of anymore, because she will run this team into bankruptcy without a doubt. I don't have a doubt that if Claire Williams stays as the team principal of this team, I have no doubt that this team will go bankrupt. No doubt at all. The longer she stays, the closer to death they get. But before I go on to how these issues can be solved, let me know, guys, in the chat, what do you think of, you know, the last, I guess, 4 or 5 years of this team and how it's all unraveled? And also, who do you think has been the cause of this downfall? Not only, I'm sure plenty of you guys are going to say Claire Williams and other people, but who else, in your opinion, has been the cause of this downfall? Is it the drivers? Is it Paddy Lowe? Anyone else? Rob Smedley? Who has it been? Who has caused this downfall? Not only Claire Williams, but who else has caused this this downfall? Let me know in the chat right now, and also in the comment section, and I'll try to reply to in the comment section and read out in the chat right now, the live chat. I'll try to read out as many comments as I can regarding this, because I'm very interested to see what you guys have to say. But before I do, I just want to let you guys know that Next weekend, of course, is the 2019 Australian Grand Prix, and I cannot wait. And if you are new to the channel, then don't worry, I will be covering it live throughout the weekend from Friday morning all the way until Tuesday night. We will be covering the 2019 Australian Grand Prix, so don't forget to subscribe for that content coming up next weekend. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there, or click on my channel name, go to the channel page and subscribe, and hit the notifications bell for more content like this. But now, let me take a look at the chat and see what you guys have to say. As to who is at fault for this happening. For me, it's Claire Williams, Paddy Lowe, slightly the drivers, but again, Claire Williams is at fault for that because she employs them. It's her decision to employ the drivers. She can do whatever she wants when it comes to what drivers are in her car. So, I guess I don't really blame the drivers. They can only do the best they can with the car they're given, even though some drivers, like a Stroll and Sirotkin, are not good enough to be in that car. And yes, as Nib said in the chat, and I've also watched the first 4 episodes of the new Netflix documentary, Claire Williams did indeed say in a team meeting that over her dead body, that they'd have to, it was something about that, that over my dead body would Mercedes become, or Williams would become a B team to Mercedes. And there you go. So, and as Nib also says, that is not happening. And yeah, it's not going to happen. And to be honest, when it comes to saving this team, I think she probably should have took that deal, because I don't think as the current Williams they're going to survive at all. Right, let me see. Let's see what you guys have to say. So Vic T says the technical director and the new drivers caused it. Say Rugara says Claire Williams is 75% of the problem. Yep, I agree. Motorsport Tube, Claire Williams, Paddy Lowe, Lance Stroll, Sergei Sirotkin, Pastor Maldonado, and Bruno Senna all caused the downfall of Williams. The reason I'm not mentioning before 2014 is because they got back up to where they should be in 2014 and 2015. That's why I'm not talking about that. Those times also did contribute, but nowhere near as big, I think, as the decision to employ Stroll, Sirotkin, and just the running of the team. And you have to remember, Claire Williams was hired basically in 2013 for the new turbo era in 2014, because Toto Wolff left the team and he was a big part of that team, and they needed a big personality to really lead that team forward, and they went with Claire Williams. Annette says, I think it's Claire, I'm not sure about Lowe. It may be that Claire hasn't been helpful or reliable, or the team just didn't like him. Hard to say. I will say, even though Paddy Lowe does deserve to go, I think the atmosphere that he was working in wasn't exactly the best for him. If he was working in a proper team, then I think he probably would have designed a better car. But still, the car he designed compared to, say, the 2017 Williams was terrible. And Williams were basically operating on the same budget in 2017 and 2018. So you can't really excuse him from that. But of course, 2019, their budget did drop a lot because Martini left them. But still, no excuses. Let's look at some more comments. Ben McCarthy says, if Frank loves this or loves his team so much, he knows best the guy needs some influence. If Frank really does love the team, then he would either sell it to someone else or let someone other than a Williams run the team. Because again, if they remain as a Williams ran and owned team, they will be out of F1 by 2022. I have no doubt about it. Right, let's see some more comments. Tonka Toy Truck, just sad to see a team go from 4th in the Constructors to last in a span of 4 years. Not only 4th, it was actually 3rd to last. That makes it even more depressing. Let's have a further look. Addiction says they have to work closer to Mercedes to succeed, like Alfa and Haas, who work with Ferrari. Small team cannot make it on their own. Alfa Romeo, who of course were once Sauber and now Alfa Romeo, and also Haas, they are really, for a small team, they are the model of how to get yourselves out of financial difficulty or difficulty when it comes to your results, because their partnerships with Ferrari allows them to fight at the front of the midfield. Now, imagine if Williams had that with Mercedes and Paddy Lowe, had a bit more technical partnership with them. Maybe they'd come up with a better car. But no, they're too proud and they don't want to give it up, when really they should, if they actually care about the people they employ and not only themselves. Because to me, not becoming a Mercedes B team screams of only caring about yourself and your own, loved ones, which, I understand, but there are more people to care about at that team than just the Williams family. You have plenty of people there who, sad to say, are most likely going to be unemployed in about 3 or 4 years. You need to also have them in mind. They need, to work. You can't throw them under the bus because you're too proud to give your team away to something that would be better than what it is now. Right, let's have a look at some more comments. Astro Stevo, I feel sorry for Frank Williams, for the whole team really. The only thing I feel sorry for Frank Williams is because of his accident that he had in 1986, he can't run the team like he did before the accident. And I think the team would have been better off if he never had that accident. Of course, in hindsight, it would have been a great thing if he never had it, but that's just the way life is. Stuff happens. But even despite that accident, there have been decisions that he has made which you have to really think, was that the right decision? Like, for example, breaking up with BMW. That was not a good decision, because after that, Williams became a midfield team. Even though I think BMW wanted to become a works team anyway, that was still not a good decision to split with BMW. Employing a Pastor Maldonado, stuff like that. Even though he had what happened to him, that doesn't mean that some of his decisions after that were really, they weren't really, you couldn't really defend them. Again, like getting rid of BMW or dropping Damon Hill at the end of 96. So yeah, I feel sorry for him in terms of he probably would have ran the team a bit differently to how they have been ran after his accident. But in terms of the decisions he has made, I can't really feel sorry for him. Let's have a further look. Electro Knights, well, other than Williams becoming a B team to Mercedes, I don't see them improving. In their current form, yeah, they're not going to improve. Thing is, as I'll get onto in a moment, if they're still not a B team to anyone, but they do replace, say, Claire Williams with a different person, they could improve. So it's not against all odds. They can absolutely improve. Right, I'll read out probably, 2 more comments, and then we'll go on to the rest of today's episode of This Week in Formula One. Ben McCarthy says Williams might need a racing legend in their team like Renault with Prost and Mercedes with Lauda. Well, if Williams had that, then it would be probably Mansell. Maybe a Damon Hill, but I'd probably say Mansell if Williams did have that, but they don't, of course. Right, let's read out one more comment, and then we'll go on to the rest of the stream. Vic T, Robert Kubica, and I've actually seen this. This is true, and this is very sad. Robert Kubica has come out and said that he only knows 20% of what the car can actually do. And as Vic T says, technical director has screwed the car. True, but to have this guy on screen only knowing 20% really of the car, that is so bad. Considering there were 8 days of testing, they didn't turn up to the first 2.5 days because of a badly designed part on the brake system. That is very depressing and very bad for a team like Williams. And I've even seen people, and I actually think, I'm pretty sure I saw this earlier on Twitter. Claire Williams, I don't know if this is real. You guys can go and have a look. But I think I saw a quote from Claire Williams. It might have been a joke. But even if it's a joke, it kind of shows how, far down they've gone. About her saying, well, maybe Robert Kubica could be our technical director. That is how laughable this team has become. She probably was joking, but that's how bad it's become. This guy is basically the technical director and the only guy that really knows how to develop a proper racing car. No disrespect to Russell, but he's young and that's not what he was brought in to do. And Robert Kubica is basically the technical director and the person who is going to develop the car. How depressing. How depressing. But anyway, let's move on. And let's now go on to who could turn this ship around. Now, ideally for team principal, if Williams could get Ross Brawn to replace Claire Williams, that would be the ideal replacement. But I'm not sure Ross Brawn actually wants to come back into an F1 team role. There's a small chance that he could, but I don't think he probably would. I think he is very focused and interested on this 2021 for Liberty Media. Again, in an ideal world, I think Ross Brawn and Williams would be perfect. He actually used to work at Williams, so that'd be great. But I think that ship sailed probably, 5 to 10 years ago. So, yeah, I don't think that is actually going to happen. But ideally, that's who I would go for to replace Claire Williams. But if you're not going to go for Ross Brawn, one person I would go for, who is still kind of working in the world of Formula One, but not really, is Nick Fry. Nick Fry now works in esports. He works for, is it Fanatec? I think it is. I don't know how to pronounce the name of that team, but I think he works for them. He would be a good and very sensible choice to replace Claire Williams, because when he was at Honda / BAR, when he was team principal for 4 seasons, I think it was 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, and was basically one of the biggest team people at Brawn in that amazing season. He did quite well. So in 2005, he couldn't really make a massive difference to the car and really progress that team forward. The team actually did improve during the season, but it wasn't really him that had that effect. But 2006 was a very good season compared to 2005, where that team won their first race as Honda, or as a Honda-powered team. And then in 2007, yes, the car became bad, but they did slightly improve for 2008. But then, of course, you had the whole Brawn thing in 2009, and he was a big part of that. and he did help a lot with his expertise. So I would go for him. Why not? If they offered him the team principal role at Williams, I I I wouldn't be surprised if he took it. I wouldn't be surprised if he took that role, because I think he'd probably, if he was offered a team principal role, I think he would be interested in coming back. The last role in F1 he had was, I think, CEO of the Mercedes F1 team in like 2012, which is what Toto Wolff took over from. So I think, yeah, I think he'd be good. I think Nick Fry would be a good replacement for Claire Williams, considering that most of the really good team principals are employed by other F1 teams. And you could say, I don't know, Graham Loudon, who worked at Manor / Marussia, you could say him. Again, you could say Ross Brawn, people like that. But I think, realistically, Nick Fry would be a good replacement to start off with. And then maybe, if someone better gets released from some team, or someone new comes out or comes up the ranks, then employ them. But as a good first replacement, I would go for Nick Fry. I think that'd be a good place to start. But when it comes to technical director, of course, Williams literally do have to find a replacement, and I would go back to Pat Symonds. Now, you could argue that Pat Symonds was partly responsible for why Williams got worse from 2014 to 2016. But remember, he started at Williams in 2013 and was also responsible for that team going up to, getting into the top 3 in the constructors in 2014 and 2015. So you have to remember that he was responsible for that. And as a short-term replacement, I would go for Pat Symonds. Now, long-term, who would you go for? I don't really know. You'd have to go for someone who's, say, working an F1 team right now, or maybe working in, I don't know, WEC, some racing series like that. Maybe go for someone in there who's young and put them in the team as a long-term replacement. But for the short term, I would go for Pat Symonds. I think he would do a good job. He is a very, very experienced person in F1. He's been in F1, I think, for what, 30... how many years has he been in F1? I think he's been, what, 35 years? Something like that. Very, very experienced. And again, as a short-term replacement, Pat Symonds would be a pretty good choice in my opinion. Let me just move on quickly. And yeah, so those two positions, the most important positions in the team, those are the people I would go for. Again, in an ideal world, Ross Brawn and Pat Symonds, that would be great. Also, those two worked with each other at Benetton when Michael Schumacher was there, so they already know each other. But even Nick Fry and Pat Symonds would work well together. So yeah, I think that would be a lot better for that team short term going forward. Nick Fry and Pat Symonds. That's a lot better for that team than Claire Williams and Paddy Lowe, because Pat Symonds, for me, has a better track record in F1 than Paddy Lowe does. Paddy Lowe, yes, he did design the Mercedes of 2014, 15 and 16, but his track record during his time in F1 compared to Pat Symonds is not as good. I know Pat Symonds was involved in the Crashgate thing, but in terms of what they've done in Formula One for the good, I think Pat Symonds ranks higher than Paddy Lowe. Paddy Lowe, I think, has designed or really had a hand in worse cars than Pat Symonds has. So, yeah, I think Nick Fry and Pat Symonds would be a good starting point. And then once you put them in charge of the team, say during their probably 2, 3, 4 years at the team that they're likely to work for Williams for, look for the next Ross Brawn or the next Frank Williams. You see what I mean? I know that it'll be very hard to find those type of people, but try and find a new young person who will lead that team forward. Say like McLaren are trying to do with Andreas Seidel, or try to find a new young person who's similar to James Key. Try and find someone like that. But as a good starting point, Nick Fry and Pat Simmons. For me, that would be good for Williams for the next 2 or 3 years, because they would start to make progress as a team. And also, don't think that those two don't have experience of being in teams that struggle financially. Pat Simmons worked for Tolman in the mid 80s, and Nick Fry had the whole Brawn thing. So he has experience of teams with no money, trust me. If you go back and look at interviews he's had when it comes to 2009, I think there was one quote where Brawn only had a few £100,000 to develop the car during the season, when Ferrari and McLaren had about, what, 20-30 million. So he has plenty of experience of having to run or partially run a team that doesn't have a lot of money. So Nick Fry and Pat Simmons is who I would go for team principal and technical director. But what I want to know from you guys is, who would you go for the team principal role and technical director role at Williams? Would you go for Nick Fry and Pat Simmons, or would you go for someone else, maybe a Ross Brawn or someone else? Who would you go for in those two positions? The reason I haven't talked about the drivers is because for me, the driver lineup right now is good enough. And for me, in terms of trying to run a good enough team, the technical director and the team principal role is more important for the team than the drivers. The drivers are there just to get the best out of the car. The technical director has to design a good enough car to do that, and then the team principal has to run the team in a good enough and effective enough way to get the best results. So for me, those are the two most important roles. Who would you guys go for in the team principal and technical director role? Let me know right now in the chat and also the comment section, and I'll read out as many comments as I can. But again, guys, as I said earlier, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, as next weekend is the first race in 2019, the 2019 Australian Grand Prix, and I will be covering it here on the channel live. So don't forget to subscribe. On the bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there, or click on my channel name, go to my channel page and subscribe for more content like this, and also hit the notifications bell so you're notified as to when videos come out. But now, let me take a look at what you guys have to say. Let's have a look. Just trying to find a starting point. So, Nib says, I think he's happy with his role at F1 at the moment. Yeah, I think Ross Brawn is. Let's take a look at some more comments. Astro Stevo says Mark Webber. Yeah, that's not going to happen. His time at Mark's time at Williams wasn't bad, but it wasn't that good either. Connor Chapman says, you're joking, right, about Malia? Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are. I don't think they possibly think that he could actually run that team. Right, let's take a further look. Daniel Crawford says Eric Boulier. That's one I haven't thought of. I'm not sure I would, because even though at Lotus he wasn't too bad, he's never oversaw anything that's really been that good. When he took charge of that team, yeah, they had, what, 2 race wins, but he never really saw the team become massively better in his time of Lotus. And then when he was at McLaren, even though he was very no-nonsense, he oversaw a terrible operation. So I don't think Eric Boulier should go to Williams. I don't think he should. Andrew Jury says Nico Rosberg. I'm not sure how that would go, even though I think he does have some affinity with the team because they did give him his start in F1. But yeah, I don't think that would happen. Let's take a look. Ben McCarthy says Paul Stoddart. That's the person who ran Minardi in the last 4 seasons of their existence. He would be better than Claire Williams, but I think he's been out of F1 for too long. You need someone who's been in F1 recent enough. And Nick Fry, the last time he was in F1 was like 2012. That for me is recent enough. I don't think you can put someone in that role who last time was in F1 was 2005. I think that's a bit too long, to be honest. Right. Let's take a look at some more comments. A couple people suggesting some football people. Let me find some more if I can. Let's take a look. I'm gonna find some more. I'm seeing a lot of VJ Malia for some reason. I don't know why people are suggesting that. Let's take a look. Pat Fry's working for McLaren, so that's not gonna happen because I'm pretty sure he is now working at McLaren with Andres Stella. Andres Seidel is going to start working there soon with James Key, who starts work in 2 weeks. So yeah, I don't think Pat Fry can go to Williams now. I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't think he would really be what they need right now. Bob Fernley, actually, that's one that I haven't thought of. Bob Fernley, that would be a good one because look what he did at Force India. He saw that team go from a midfield team to, like, and when I say midfield, I mean right in the lower-ish half of the midfield. He saw them go from that into P4 in the constructors, and they had some podium finishes. They weren't too far off Red Bull at some races in 2017. They should have won the race at Baku in 2017 if it wasn't for Esteban Ocon's idiotness at that Grand Prix. They probably would have had a 1-2 finish at that race. Yeah, Bob Fernley, that'd be a good one. But right now, he can't go to Williams because he's overseeing the McLaren IndyCar program for the Indy 500. But maybe after that, yeah, why not? That'd be quite good, I think. Right, let me read out a few more. Martin Whitmarsh. No, I don't like Martin Whitmarsh. He was the wrong person to take over Ron Dennis at McLaren. He had enough there between 2009 and 2012, or 2013, sorry. He had enough to win the championship, and he didn't. He never actually came that close. In 2010, they should have contended more than they did, considering they were 1-2 in the Drivers' Championship with Hamilton and Button. And then in 2012, they had the best car, but the team was ran so horribly from Martin Whitmarsh in terms of reliability of the car, pit stops, organisation of the team. Just everything was very messy. It was ran very, very messy. And Martin Whitmarsh was very responsible for that. So no, I wouldn't say Martin Whitmarsh. I don't think Martin Whitmarsh should really have ever ran an F1 team. I don't think he was actually properly ready for that role, especially at McLaren. Someone's saying Rob Smedley. He'd be better than Claire Williams, but I don't think he is the answer. The Nightmare Maldonado says, what about Eddie Jordan? Yeah, why not? But then again, he's been out of F1 too long. So, no, I don't think he should, in hindsight. Because again, like Paul Stoddart, he's been out of F1 too long. I know he's, part of TV and stuff like that, but he hasn't been properly in an F1 team and within its operations since 2004. So no, I don't think he should. I don't think he should come back. You need to have someone who's been in F1. Say the last time they were in F1 was say 2010, 2011. You can't have someone in your team as team principal who was last in F1 in like 2004. That's too long away, because a lot of things have happened since 2005 within the sport. Back in 2005, we had V10s, refueling, groove tires. It was way, way different. So no, I don't think we should. I don't think Williams should go for him. And I think the Williams family would be very, very disappointed to hand over to him, considering that those two teams, Williams and Jordan, plenty of times were racing each other in certain races. Electro Knight's pretty sure Chazza can run Williams better than Claire Williams can. Yeah, I think I could. Andrew Drury, Marco Mattiacci. He wasn't as bad as you think. I think he did. I think he did as well as he could have done, considering the experience he had, which was none, and just the situation that was going on at Ferrari at the time. I think he did well enough, considering again that he had literally no experience and was such a surprise in that role. So I think he did well enough, but no, I don't think they should go for him, even though he'd probably do better than Claire Williams. Thierry Boutsen, that's a good one. Stefano Domenicali, no, that's from Ultraman, by the way. No, I don't think they should go for him. Also, like Martin Whitmarsh, he did not see the improvement of that team. He saw the downfall of that team in terms of the way it was ran, the pace of the car, etc. So no, I wouldn't go for him. But I would like to see him oversee maybe another manufacturer coming into the sport just to start it up. But he is not what Williams... Williams do not need him, because I don't think he really has what it takes, to be honest. Electro Knight says Martin Brundle. Someone else says Alan Jones. Someone else saying Martin Brundle. It'd be interesting to see him run an F1 team, to be honest. He does have experience of not running an F1 team, but being kind of within a team, because he was basically within McLaren when David Coulthard was there, because he was part of his group that, negotiated deals and stuff like that. So he does have a bit of experience, I guess, but I don't think he should run a team. I don't think he would be good in that role. Andrew Jury just picked somebody from the crowd in Melbourne to be team principal. Yeah, they'd probably be better. But I think, guys, I have ranted and raved long enough, and I'm now going to come to the end of this stream. Thank you guys for coming along. Two things I want to let you guys know before I come to the end is, one, the F1 Fantasy League, the Chazza HD F1 Fantasy League, is going to be up by tonight. I am going to make it, create it, and it'll be posted in the Discord and on Twitter and on the community part of my channel. It'll be posted in all of those things by, say, I don't know, 6 o'clock tonight. So I'll make sure to do that for you guys. And also, just to let you guys know, the next video is either going to be on Wednesday or Thursday. It's a season preview of all the teams, but it's a different kind of one to yesterday. Yesterday was more hearing Nib's thoughts than mine. And also, it was more about what we thought was going to happen. This season preview is more of an analysis, especially of the top teams, and how, I guess, certain things are going to go in 2019. So that's what that is going to be. The aim is to either upload it on Wednesday or Thursday at 4 p.m. So that is the aim. Definitely I'm going to try and get it out before practice starts in Melbourne, and then we have the Australian Grand Prix weekend. And don't worry, guys, I will update you as to the schedule for that going forward. I'll probably post a graphic on Twitter and in Discord during the week as to what the schedule is from Friday 6 a.m, which is when I do a practice watch along, up until Tuesday night, which is the Tuesday after the race, where we do the podcast. I will post a schedule as to everything coming in between from Friday 6 a.m. until Tuesday night. So don't worry, that is coming during the week. But yeah, the next video is probably going to be Wednesday or Thursday. The reason it's not going to be till then is because this video is going to be a bit long, I think. And also, I want to work on it as much as possible to make it as good as possible, which I think is what all YouTubers should do, to make the best content you possibly can. So that is why it will be coming out then. But guys, thank you very much for coming along and hearing me rant about Williams for just over an hour. But yeah, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Again, I'll be live throughout the Australian Grand Prix weekend next weekend. So don't forget to subscribe. Bottom right of the screen, or click on bottom right of the screen to subscribe, or click on my channel name. Go to my channel page and subscribe, and hit the notifications bell for more content like this. Like this video, comment down below what you thought of this video, and comment down below on what you think of the situation at Williams, and also who is to blame, and who would you put in the team principal and technical director role at Williams? Let me know in the comments section down below. Also, don't forget to join our Discord server. That's the first place I will post the F1 Fantasy League, our league. So make sure to join that. Also, it's the best place for notifications for my videos. And as well, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Chaz6110, a great place to keep up to date with me and the channel. And as well, check out my website, chazerhd.com, for more content like this. But until my next video, which is going to be at the latest Thursday 4 p.m, and until the next stream, which will be actually very exciting because it will be a practice to watch along on Friday at 6 a.m. UK time. Until then, it has been me, ChazerHD. Goodbye.